So, weekend recap. I think I've decided that I'm not going to try to do these right away on Sundays because a lot of times I'm just kind of shot after a weekend. I really am a firm believer in if you're going to lead people in worship, that you should really just leave it all on the stage. Like, come home exhausted. It's a very, very rewarding experience to know that I led people in worship with so much of my being that, and worship God with so much of my being that I'm physically exhausted. And I got home after church and I crashed so hard on the couch and I just zoned out. I think I drooled a little bit. It was great. But anyway, so as part of that, I think I had originally planned that I would do these weekend recaps on Sunday, but I think it makes more sense to do them a little bit later in the week. But anyway, so this last weekend, I told myself that for these videos, I'm not going to talk about the details of what we did on the weekend, because that's just regurgitation. But to process kind of what I was feeling and what I was thinking, and kind of from my perspective, what was happening in worship and stuff. And it was an easy weekend as far as the music was concerned. It wasn't like we did anything extremely challenging. It was really easy to just focus in on what we were doing and leading people in worship and just in worshiping and playing the songs and singing the lyrics and all that kind of stuff. Technologically, everything went off without a hitch, which is awesome. I love it when technology cooperates. So really, in all intents and purposes, it should have been a very easy weekend. But it was still so exhausting in not really a bad way, but not a good way either. It felt like it was stressful, but not for any real reason. There was no reason to be stressed. All the team members were showing up. All of the people were showing up prepared. All of the the crowd was great at church. It was a really, really great weekend. But I carried with me this stress all weekend, and that I think it's part of the reason I crashed so hard is because I was managing this stress that really didn't need to be there the whole time. And I still haven't quite pinpointed what it was. And because of that, I'm really starting to think that it's a spiritual thing. Because that's what I sort of found over the years. There are a lot of things that are explainable that are oh yeah, I didn't get any sleep, so that's why I'm tired. That's pretty obvious cause and effect situation. But then there are times where it's just I'm anxious, and I, for the life of me, can't figure out what I could possibly be anxious about. And it's in those moments that if you have the clarity of mind to say hey, will somebody pray for me real quick, which I totally could have and should have done, but I didn't think about it. I just sort of carried that stress level and anxiety stuff in the back of my head for the whole weekend and just kind of pushed it back and didn't really even think about it or process it long enough to realize wow, I'm really anxious. You know how you can be feeling an emotion and not even it doesn't get up here, you just carry it, and then all of a sudden things slow down enough and you just take a moment to reflect, and then you realize, wow, I'm really sad right now. That's sort of what happened to me, but it took, the weekend was over when I finally realized, man, I was so anxious. I was talking to Lisa on the way home, and I was just yeah, there's no reason for me to have been stressed about this weekend. It went really, really, really well. Everything, and it was all going to go well too. It wasn't oh, we just barely squeaked by the skin of our teeth. It was things were going to go well too. It was just, I don't know. It was just easy, but there was this base level of anxiety. So first of all, have you guys ever had that happen where it's just it's an easy day, there's nothing really going on that should change this and make it feel bad, but it just feels bad, tell me about that a little bit in the comments below, if you want. But anyway, so what am I going to do about that? That's really the real question that I want to think about and talk about, because like I said, this channel is about me sort of processing a little bit too, so I don't have all the answers. I don't claim to have all the answers, and a lot of time this is just me trying to find out some of the answers just by talking about it and thinking about it and even hearing from you guys. So like if you have thoughts on what to do in that situation, I'd love to hear those too, or read them, I suppose, down below. But anyway, this is kind of where my mind is going with this, I guess, is if I would have stopped for a few moments to kind of breathe and think, I would have realized I'm carrying around this anxiety. If I would have then realized it, I would have asked for prayer from somebody, and that I, without a doubt, would have just blasted that away. Like it just been gone. So tracing that back to this part, this point over here where I didn't even slow down enough to realize that was happening. Like I was just going. It was like I got there for like early before rehearsal started to make sure that a bunch of different things were set up so that rehearsal would go smoothly, and then all the people started showing up. I started like greeting people and saying hi and working with people on different things for the weekend, and then the rehearsal starts, and then obviously, you know, rehearsal time, sound checks, and all that stuff happens, and then service time, and then service time is going, and then after service, we had done like this big party for all of the band and the production team and stuff, and so I was running around like a chicken with my head cut off, just making sure that everyone was having a good time. Of course, I was having a great time too. It's not like I was miserable or anything the whole time doing all this stuff. I was having a great time. It was going really, really well. People were having fun, eating food, playing video games together, hanging out at a bonfire, and then when we finished with that, cleaned it up. It was late, so I just crashed, went right to sleep, like straight from like action to sleep. And what I should have done is what I just did, which was just like take a second, step away from everything, and just breathe for a little bit, and just let myself have a little bit of silence, and just a little bit of peace, because it's crazy how much clarity you can get with even like 3 minutes or 5 minutes, or God forbid 10 minutes of just silence. There's a reason why it's silence is such a big practice in Christianity throughout the ages, is because not talking, like I'm doing right now, just talk. Not talking really gets your brain going in a different way. There was a thing I used to do a while back, and just having this conversation now is making me think that I should probably start setting aside time to do this again. And I would, what I would do is I'd get in a dark room and light 3 candles, and it was just a silent room, and I'd light 3 candles, and to kind of, you know, Father, Son, Holy Spirit. It wasn't anything like mystical. It was just to help me remember, like, God's here with me, you know. And light 3 candles and just hang out in this dark room just by the candlelight, and just, I was allowed to talk, but it was just, I just want to be with you, Jesus. Or, I am here with you, Jesus. Those are like the only 2 things that I allowed myself to say. And those were just mainly ways to kind of remind myself why I was there. So if I like start drifting off and thinking about salad, who would just think about salad? Who knows? I could say one of those things and it kind of like get me back on track, just like simply being with God in that moment and nothing more, because you're in a dark room with just a little bit of candlelight, and all you're allowing yourself to say are those things, and just think about the fact that you're just being with God is so limiting. But I remember walking away from that, and I would do that for 10 minutes, just 10 minutes, and man, it felt like hours. When you don't like allow yourself to do anything, or like twiddle on your phone, or even like or think about, you know, flooring tiles. It's crazy how long it feels. But anyway, this thought of going from super stressed out and anxious, and if I would have just like taken just a minute or 2 minutes to just kind of breathe and kind of get away from people for a little bit, I think it would have been a lot more of a state of peace throughout the weekend, you know, and joy. Like I was in joy, but it was like this high energy, kind of crazy joy that kind of came back to bite me a little bit later. And so anyway, that's sort of like one of my solutions or ideas to this problem of like carrying anxiety and not really noticing it, is just to slow down enough to notice it so that way you can address it. But if you guys have other ideas, I'd love to hear about them, like I said before. If you haven't yet, go ahead and subscribe. You can do that by clicking the little thing that says subscribe, and then you'll get a notification when I post a new video, which is every day. So anyway, I encourage you to do that because that'd be fun. It's kind of fun when we can have a continual conversation over time. But yeah, thank you guys so much for hanging out today. Hopefully we'll see you next time. Peace.